the way that my life started to turn around is that when I was a teenager, and by this time I'd started to become pretty depressed, which is unusual for me. I'm a very buoyant person. But when you hear over and over again that you may not live, it starts to get to you. And what happened was that there was a woman in our neighborhood who went to a Dr. Robert Pottinger. His family was from the pioneering Pottinger family that did the Pottinger cat studies. And they studied something very new in the 60s, which was the understanding of environmental toxicity. And my parents, who thought that he was really out there, even though he was a medical doctor, but they were desperate. They were being told that their daughter was going to die. So they took me to him, and he said, if we don't get this girl off of all the drugs that she's on, we're going to lose her. And they said, but it's the drugs that are keeping her alive. And he said, no, it's not. It's the drugs that are just taking her organs apart. So he did something that was revolutionary, which was we did food allergy testing, and we discovered there was 7 things that I was not allergic to. And those things I had to eat organic. There had to be no processed food, no dairy, no sugar, no wheat. Things that a diet that actually is pretty common for me to put my clients on, but in the early 60s, this was unheard of. My health had gotten to a place where I was better, but I was still very, very fragile. Very, very fragile. My immune system had not really repaired. I was just living on the edge. But for me, I was so much better than I had ever been. I was functioning. The reason that I was not yet well is because all the toxins and all the drugs that had been put in, we hadn't really taken out. So they were all just rolling around in my system, and they were keeping me from getting really well. And he said that we were going to go on a living food diet. So we did a living food diet, and then we went to Hippocrates Health Institute, and we studied there for 2 years, and I did the Health Educators Program. So being there with Dr. Ann, with Viktoras Kulvinskas, with Bernard Jensen, with all the leaders and the pioneers of the natural health movement was a life-changing experience for me, and my body healed. My body began to heal. I knew that I would be well and that I would regain my strength. My organs began to regenerate, and I really fought the idea of being a healer. My husband at the time said, well, why do you think God gave you all the illnesses that you have? But I just had felt that if I could ever heal myself, I never wanted to be around another sick person. But during the time that I was at Hippocrates, and people were coming in as guests. There were children, there were people in their 90s, there was everybody in between. I'd had so many of the illnesses that people had that I could look at them and say, I had what you had, and I made it, and you will too. And it's not easy. And I learned that because it had been my life, I could be strong, and I could be tough, and I could be firm, and I could share with them what it was going to take to do it, but that it could be done.